Hello again painters, it's Debbie from acrylicpouring.com and today I'm going to carry out another experiment. If you look back to one of my previous videos, you'll see that I was very excited to get some of this Liquitex Pouring Medium, first time I'd used it, and I did a side-by-side comparison. So I used my usual recipe with Floetrol, and then I swapped out the Floetrol, left that out altogether and used Pouring Medium for my second example, and then in the third example I mixed the two together 50-50. And I created 3 flip cups on some tiles for us to compare. So go back and take a look at that if you'd be interested in seeing how they worked out. But I figured that one experiment does not produce results that you can really rely on. So what I'm going to do today is just an experiment with 2 tiles. I'm going to use my usual recipe. These are the paints that I've already got mixed according to my usual recipe with the Floetrol. So it's equivalent to 1 tablespoon of paint, a half a tablespoon of Floetrol, 1 tablespoon of water, plus the drops of silicone oil. And then I've also got, in these little paint cups, the leftovers from the previous experiment. So basically these come down to 1 tablespoon of paint, and then they're mixed with a half a tablespoon of pouring medium, which is basically 50-50 of the 2 of these plus the water. So these ones are not exclusively pouring medium and they're not exclusively Floetrol. They're mixed 50-50 with each. So I'm going to see what that does, and I thought today I would do a swipe. So I'm going to use exactly the same colours. I've got the pink, yellow and orange, which created something quite unbelievably and not all too pleasantly bright the last time round. It was a little bit overboard. I'm not great at mixing colours together. So I'm going to use the usual recipe on one swipe, and then these leftovers on the other, which are mixed 50-50 with the pouring medium. So let me clear all this away. We'll pull the tiles in and we'll get to doing some swiping. So for ease, I'm just going to use these squeeze bottles first of all. And I've got the 3 colours, and I'm just going to kind of layer them up down our tile here, something like this. So I've got the lemon yellow. This is a bright orange. My orange always is the lighter of all my colours in terms of its density and its specific gravity, so it tends to dominate a little bit, so I don't want to go too overboard. I actually would like a bit more of my pink in this one, so I'm going to put some thicker pink layers. So there we are, that's basically it. Let's make it nice and easy. These are the recipes which have just got the original recipe. So these are the paints just with the Floetrol, no pouring medium, just Floetrol in these. I'm going to add a bit of white, and actually I don't want too much white, so let me just fill in with a bit of yellow. So we'll do mostly a white swipe with a bit of yellow as well. Okay, so let's get my cloth at the ready, and I'm just basically going to swipe down and we'll see what happens with these, and then the second set we can compare, see what happens with the pouring medium instead. Wow, that's interesting. Never had anything come up quite like that one before. Now this is funny, I've done some swipes that are like this in the past, and it always amazes me, you know, even when you swipe, how differently things can come out. Because look at this, these cells are tiny, and I mean tiny, absolutely tiny. I don't know why it does that sometimes. Very, very interesting that it does. Now I've swiped a little bit too much off the end, so I'm just going to see if I can do a bit more and pull a bit more paint here. Actually, let's swipe again all the way from the top. I'm going to put a bit more white up there. Not too much, because I've taken a bit of paint right off the bottom just there. Let's do a bit more of a swipe. And then I'll use what I've got here to just fill in on the bottom just there. That's going to look good. Also, move the paint to the bottom of the tile on the edge there too. Make sure that looks good. And it does. The sides are pretty much covered. I've got a little bit there I can just pull in. And let's check on this side. A bit on the corner. But actually that's good too. Okay, so that's our first swipe. This is the paints just with the Floetrol, and it's very interesting. I had that, did you see that great big purple area that came up just here? So of course that's kind of gone down through. Got big yellow up here, then kind of medium, and then after that tiny tiny. And I've had it before on a swipe that I've done. So not all the paints react the same way. You can see the yellow makes larger cells, the pink here is kind of medium, and then everything else tiny. Lots of really intricate details, but it's interesting that it does it that way. So now I'm going to switch these paints out. Oh, I just put my arm in it, as I often do. Let's wipe that up a minute. I'll put these away. Because now if I switch around 180 degrees, just because I'm right-handed and I always want to make sure that I swipe in the right direction. So let's layer this tile up, and we'll do the same thing. But this time I'm going to use the paints that have the pouring medium in them, and we'll swipe the same way and see what happens. So I'm going to layer them up the same. These are quite full. So I'm probably going to make a big mess, but we'll see. Ooh, I did quite a big layer of yellow, so let's do that. Whoa. Yeah, it's nowhere near as easy to pour out of these little cups as it is out of those squeeze bottles. I definitely prefer the bottles in terms of the control that it gives me. So I've got those in the store, the exact same ones that I use. I don't know if you know that the acrylicpouring.com site also has a store, which is called acrylicpouringstore.com, and you can hop on over there and pick up all the supplies. So usually the supplies that you see me using in the video all come from the store, or you can go and buy them in the store if you don't have them already. Whoa, again, not easy with these pots. I much prefer the bottles. Okay, plus these cups are a little bit on the full side. And there we go. Just layer in with my orange and some orange down at the bottom. Whoa, lots of paint. Okay, so I don't think we're going to be short on paint on this one. And then I've also got the white. So I'll just put the white up at the top here. Whoop. So it's not an exact comparison, it never can be, because of course the paints aren't exactly the same thickness and that they were, but the paint consistency is similar. These ones here were just the Floetrol, this one has the pouring medium in. So let's give it a try and see if we get a similar result to that one, or whether for any reason it looks a little bit different. So I'm just taking my little card off into my cloth off camera, just to wipe it off a little bit, so that I don't drag the colours into the white. And there we go. Oh, not quite enough. Let's drag a little bit on the bottom to that corner. That's it. We're good. Okay. So let's take a look at our results. This one here, the white for some reason is swept further down into the picture than this one. And this one, you see, has got slightly different effects. I've got bigger cells coming through on this one, whereas this one was teeny tiny. So again, I'm not sure whether this is, you know, an entirely valid experiment, because, you know, when you swipe, even if you do two that are exactly the same, they never work out exactly the same. But I'm definitely going to keep trying. And when I do paintings in future, I'll do, you know, a little bit with one, with the Floetrol, and then maybe try something else with the pouring medium and just see how I get on, because you never really can tell. Some paints will be different too. Some paints will prefer one maybe than the other. I know there are people out there who like to stick with one brand sometimes, or others who like to mix and match their brands even within the same painting, because that can give different results too. As you're using different brands of paint within the same painting, you get different results. So let me just finish touching up. Just got a little bit of touching up to do in the corners, but not very much because I took a little bit more care to try and sweep off the end this time. That's pretty good. There's quite a bit of orange I need to just add to the bottom. But with those dribbles there, it matches in perfectly. So I'm happy. A bit of orange in this final corner. And we're looking good. Okay, so they are looking different. This one, the white has gone further down, but again I've got bigger cells with the yellow and smaller cells as it's gone down the bottom, but not the same teeny tiny effect that I got with this one, and this one has more larger cells coming through. So let's give them both a torching now and see if the torching makes any difference. So I've given them both a good going over, and it's not changed the appearance of either really very much. So I think generally with the swipes, when you do your swipe, it's the swipe that creates the movement and the action in the cells in the paint, and less so the medium and so on that you're using. So let me bring down the camera and I'll show you the details of both of these now. So the one on this side, this is the first one I did. This is the one that has the Floetrol only. Come in to take a look at the details. Look at the teeny tiny cells. I don't know why it does that sometimes. Absolutely teeny, but they are beautiful. You know, the details of them is really nice. So on a smaller project like this one, this tile's a 6-inch tile, so the small cells really suit the scale of the project, so I'm happy. So I think that looks nice. So let's switch over now and look at the other one. So I've just noticed this one has a bit of a flaw, which we'll talk about in a minute, but this is the one where I had mixed the pouring medium in with the Floetrol, so it was a 50-50 mix, and it gave a slightly different result. There's more larger cells in this one, and it's perhaps more colourful, so there's some detailed areas just here, but there's also some larger areas where the colours have mixed. So this one is definitely my favourite of the two. This one would be my preference, although up at the top I think probably I put too much of the white and the yellow because I didn't have quite so much control using those silly little pots as I do have with the squeeze bottles. So this is a lesson. Get the squeeze bottles because, you know, not only can you mix up a whole load of paint in advance, but you get so much more control using the little pots like I was doing, especially when they're full, really hard. And you may notice this flaw. Yes, I've got a hair in it. I've actually just come back from the hairdressers, and obviously when I was bending over, a loose bit of hair has fallen, but I've got a little pin, so I'll just pick that up with a pin. I'm sure it'll be fine because the paint's still wet. So there we are again. These are the two side by side. This is the one that was the Floetrol only. This is the one that also had the Liquitex Pouring Medium in. So if you can hang around for a couple more minutes, I'm just going to set these aside to dry, and then I'll show you what they look like when they're finished. So here are our swipes side by side once they're dry. This was the one with the Floetrol. This was the one that also had the pouring medium. So let's take a look. The Floetrol one has dried very flat, quite matte in appearance, but the cells are all still beautifully outlined. It's all exactly as it was, and the surface of it looks really good. This is the one that also had the pouring medium. It has a slightly glossier finish to it, although you wouldn't be able to call it glossy, but it's not as matte as this one. The paint appears to have a bit more volume, a bit like it did when we did the pour on the tiles on the other experiment. And the cells are all still good. The cells that we had still are still here. But I do have the same problem on this that I had with the previous experiment with the pouring medium, that there's lots of holes. Not sure if you'll be able to see them, but there are lots of holes in the paint here, some more holes just here, some here. So yeah, up at the top in this yellow area, You can maybe see them a little bit. Lots of holes in the paint. So that's really unusual because I've never ever had holes in my paint in any of my projects I've done before until I started using the pouring medium. And I'm wondering whether it's just because it takes maybe longer to dry or because it keeps the paint just that little bit thicker that the little craters, the tiny pinholes are created. So that's interesting anyway. It's another experiment side by side with the Floetrol and some with the pouring medium in so that we can see the difference. So I hope this has been useful for you. As always, you can hop on over to acrylicpouring.com and read more about the benefits of acrylic pouring and how it's absolutely wonderful. And you can also go across to acrylicpouringstore.com and buy all of your acrylic pouring and painting products there. Thank you very much for watching.